Yeah, this is peak Knitcheek, peak Natalie. This is how I want to be remembered, is like this. Hello, and welcome to Knitcheek, a silly podcast where I talk about all the things that I am knitting and making. This is episode 2. My name is Natalie. I'm the cheek behind Knitcheek. That's kitschy. I'm sorry. So I'm just gonna get started with the projects that I have been knitting in 2024. So I made a video of all the things that I made in 2023, and I lied. I said that I made I made 6 Oslo hats total. And I made 4 black Oslo hats with retrosaria Mondim held double. And I lied. I only did 3 last year. One of them I started January 3rd because I was knitting it for my uncle who lives in Illinois. So I was like, I have time. I can send it to him late. And it's winter forever there. So he'll get somewhere out of it. So I'm just going to show that real quick. And that is this black Oslo hat. I knit 4 of these bad boys with retrosaria Mondim held double. Pleasure to work with that yarn. I loved it. 4 black beanies, maybe didn't love that, but it wasn't a big deal. Also, sorry, I have cats, so everything has hair on it. I just lint rolled this and there's still hair on it. So briefly, that only took me 11 days to knit. I really think that my knitting mojo, is that what people call it? Like my knitting, I'm knitting a lot, and I don't know if that's because I made a YouTube video. No, it's not, because last year in 2023 was the most I've ever knit, and I guess I'm just trying to keep that going. I'm trying to keep the rhythm going. I'm trying to keep myself motivated to knit, and there's a couple of things that really helped with that. And having multiple projects going at once, making sure I always have another project lined up, or things that have been really helping me keep the knitting going and keeping the projects coming out. Not that I'm trying to factory line knitwear, but sometimes I would go months without knitting because I would just lose it, and that's not happening this year, so that's why. Okay, next finished object, I have my Sorgenfri scarf. I have a notebook right here, so that's what I'm doing, and the scarf is what I'm wearing right here, and that is a cute little tiny bandana. I knit this in a sport weight, and I believe the pattern called for DK, but I didn't get gauge. I was just like, it's a bandana. I'm just gonna knit until I run out of yarn, which is exactly what I did. I had this cashmere yarn left over from a baby beanie that I knit for a friend's baby, and it's cashmere 16, and I had like 75% of a ball left, and I just wanted to use all of it, and so I was looking for a pattern that would let me do that. I like to wear it here. You could wear it here too, like a little stewardess scarf is what I like to call it. My favorite way to wear it. So last night, my friend came over to pick up one of the cages that we have. We foster and rescue cats and dogs, mostly cats and kittens. And so she came over to get this big cage, and we were helping her load it in her van. And it was a little bit cold outside, and I was wearing this bandana, and my ears got cold. And just out of instinct, I took it off and I tied it around my head like this. And I came inside, I'm done, so it looks funny. And I never took it off, and I was just wearing it around like this with this chunky grandma sweater too. And my boyfriend was like, "What are you wearing?" And I was like, "I don't know, but I love it. I've peaked. I have peaked." So yeah, this is how I was wearing it. Not to the pleasure of my boyfriend, who thought I looked ridiculous, but yeah, this is peak Knitcheek, peak Natalie. This is how I want to be remembered, is like this. Anyways, Sorry, a little ridiculous. But yeah, I think this is probably a little bit more hip and trendy to wear it like this. But sometimes your ears get cold, you know, so it's nice to have that versatility. So yeah, I like this yarn a lot. It was kind of hard for me to hold my tension with it because I had like a lot of bounce. But other than that, I love the end product. It's super soft. It's cashmere, so I mean, yeah. I think that's all I have to say about this Sorgenfri scarf. Let me just show you my notebook here. It's a hemlock and oak. It's just my planner. It's just my regular planner that I do my monthly and weekly in, and I just have one page at the end that I've started documenting my knits. I'm not a great speller, so don't be zooming in on this, okay? There's like 15 extra pages at the end, and I was like, I think I can make this work for my knitting. So far I filled up a whole page though, so I don't know if I keep at this pace, I may run out. I would love to get like a little knitting notebook, but at the moment I was just like, you know, I have this and I haven't really found the perfect knitting notebook, and well, I did, but it's pricey, so we're gonna make this work for right now. So those are my 2 finished objects so far in 2024. I think another thing that's helping me is that I'm knitting a lot smaller things, and like it keeps you pumping them out and you're done and you're like, oh my God, this is instant gratification, instead of trying to knit a sweater and then it take 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, 6 years. I did have a cardigan that took me 6 years to finish. And then that kind of like just slows you down, you know, because you aren't getting any gratification of having those finished objects. So, okay, so works in progress. I don't know what this is. Project, this is the second project I cast on this year. I casted it on January 15th. I don't know why I'm telling you the dates. And I finished it on February 10th, I guess. So I could say I finished it in like a little bit less than a month. And that is the Weekend Hat by Petite Knit. You probably know that because it's very popular. Like I said, I knit 6 Oslo hats last year. So I'm burnt out on the Oslo hat, even though the Oslo hat is such a good, like, it's a head sock. You're just knitting in stockinette. You're knitting in stockinette. So it's a good project to have on the back burner or just have around if you're going to be on a train or something. But yeah, I got burnt out on those. And I also don't love them for me personally. Maybe if I made it like longer. But I like the stretchiness of like, she's stretchy, but she's stretchy, you know, like you can't really, that was annoying. You can't really compare with 1x1 ribbing. So yeah, and this has a brim that's folded 3 times. Sorry, I really couldn't think of the words. So, you know, you unfold it and it's freaking a mile long, and it has those double knitting. This is still a little damp because I'm blocking it. It's only damp on one side, but I need to flip it over on the blocking mat. So just roll that back up. Yeah, so I ended up having to crack open a second skein. That's a lie. I desperately had to go online and look for a second skein. Black Mountain Yarn Shop out from the East Coast had a skein of this in the dye lot that I had, and I think I emailed them, and they emailed me back, and they're like, yeah, we have it. They sent me an invoice. I got it in like 3 or 4 days. They were a lifesaver because, you know, otherwise this just would have been languishing for forever. As I do, I cast on the wrong amount of stitches. Doesn't matter how many times I count my cast on, it's always wrong. And I never know until it's too late. But I was off by 2 stitches. So I was supposed to cast on, I won't tell you because that's a paid for pattern, but I was supposed to cast on however many stitches. I cast on 2 less, and the decreased sections are split into 4. And because it's 1x1 rib, it's not like I could easily hide that with spreading it around. So there's just one section that's a rib stitch shorter. I don't think you can tell, but it was annoying. that I do that to myself quite frequently, unfortunately. So yeah, this yarn, let me tell you about the yarn. My goodness. So I keep all my yarn labels in like this little tin. And then I will hole punch it with a little bit of the yarn there. I don't know why I'm showing you that one, but this is the one for the weekend hat that I knit. This is Orgin by Walcots yarn, a cozy fiber blend inspired by nature and comfort in home. It is Argentina Merino 50% and 50% fine Highland wool. It was, I believe this is worsted weight, and the color is High Desert. And the weekend hat is supposed to be knit in DK, but I didn't know worsted weight. So other than having to buy that second skein, everything was great about this hat. I finished it and then had to rip back because I didn't have enough length. It was too fitted. And I had already bought the second skein, so I was like, I might as well add more length if I want more length. So I did rip back to the decreases and added 1.5 inches. So that's the weekend hat. I will maybe insert some pictures of me wearing it just because I can't do that. I'm not gonna put it on now because it's a little bit wet, but maybe I'll try. We'll see. So that was works in progress number 1. My work in progress number 2, I am working on the Ariana cardigan by Amy Christoffers. It is a free pattern on Ravelry, and it is a crochet granny square cardigan. It is my 3rd crochet project, and I have this train case by Della Q. It is the perfect vessel for this project. So I have my little inspo picture here. I have my swatch granny, and then it's got a little tray where I keep all the granny squares that I'm working on, and then on the bottom I keep all the yarn and the finished granny squares that I'm grannying, as you granny, you know, as you do. So I'm kind of doing that like factory line with the granny squares. Here's some of my finished grannies. I'm trying to do 10 a week, and I'll do like 1 color at a time per day. So I'll do the yellow, then the pink, then the nougat, then the white, then the yellow. This is all knitting for olive yarn in the heavy merino. So I've got some here that I'm, you know, working on. I've got a stack that I'm working on white, a stack that I'm still working on white. I have 26 done, and then I'm working on, no, I have 16 done, I'm working on another 10. And I'm a day late. I need to finish those, and then I'll start the next 10. I need to make 46 of these granny squares, and then I think 14 half granny squares. This project is a failed project from 2023. So I did attempt to knit it last year, and oh, I should have brought one of those granny squares. They're horrific. So let me tell you a story about why it's important to have knitting friends. So I went to the SoCal Fiber Fair, and I had already started knitting or crocheting this granny square cardigan, and I had crocheted 12 granny squares. And in the pattern, you're supposed to meet gauge of 5.5 inches. And I really struggled to get a granny square that was 5.5 inches across, because that wasn't right. So I was crocheting with, I think like a size 6 crochet hook, 6 millimeter, and you're supposed to use a 3.75 millimeter. So I had these huge granny squares. I'm looking at all the Ravelry projects, and I'm like, I don't understand why are my granny squares so big if that's the gauge. So I go to SoCal Fiber Fair. Boku Yarns is there. It's a local yarn store in Laverne, California. And they had a sample of it, and it didn't look like my granny squares. So I went and asked the owner, who said she crocheted it. And she said, oh yeah, it's really easy to miss, but your 5.5 inch gauge that you're trying to get with a granny square is diagonally. like, oh yeah, that can't be true. That cannot be true that it says that. I read that pattern. I go home, I reread the pattern, and it does say that. It does say 5.5 diagonally. So yeah, I obviously put those loosey-goosey granny squares aside, and I think I'm hoping that I don't have to rip those apart just because I don't want to do that, but I might have to because I don't know if I have enough yarn to do all these granny squares. So, but I restarted, and now the pacing is going good. I'm motivated to do it. I take this train case around with me. I thought this would be more of a project that I work only on home, just because of the yarn management with granny squares. I've got multiple colors, but the train case makes it really easy for me to take it everywhere. I do think that Delicue discontinued this color, probably because it's so light and it would be really easy to get dirty. But I mean, I take it on the job site all the time. I work, you know, around construction, and I bring it with me and I crochet. So, and it's, I mean, I guess I'm careful with it not to get it dirty. But so that's the Ariana Cardigan by Amy Christoffers. I started that on January 29th, and it is February. Is that right? How did I do that so fast? I don't know. Okay, so yeah, that's surprising. No, yeah, I restarted it January 29th. Dang, and I'm almost 26. I have to finish the last 10. So that's good progress. Next, I have one more work in progress, and that is the scarf number 4 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I knit my mom the Nellie neck warmer last year by My Favorite Things Knitwear with Saxony Juniper Farm cashmere. I'll show you that in a minute. And she loved it. And then she saw this bandana. She's like, oh, that's really cute. I was like, oh, do you want one in black? I have this black yarn. And she said, yes. So I'm going to knit it for her for Mother's Day. And I just started this last night, so there isn't much to show here. But I've got my little tortilla chip of a bandana here. It's actually really similar to the scarf that I knit already, the Sorgenfri scarf that I'm wearing, except for the stitch pattern is the same, except for the stitch pattern on this one goes, what's the word? Horizontal? Yeah, horizontal. And this one, the stitch pattern goes up and down. I really retained all the high school information. So this is also Walcot yarns, but in a different base. This is their alpaca base. It is called Opus, and it is 70% Argentina Merino and 30% baby alpaca, and it's really nice. It's got a good amount of structure to it still, and I am loving it. I did not gauge for this. I just cast it on because I was like, I want to use this entire skein. I'm just gonna. It's kind of like the Sophie scarf where you can knit until the middle and then start decreasing. So that's what I'm going to do with this. And I cast it on, and I thought that the fabric looks good. And yeah, so that's that. I can already see this is going pretty good. I really enjoyed knitting the bandana. I think I actually might enjoy knitting this one a little bit more. I thought about just knitting this one for my mom, but I kind of wanted to try something a little bit different, and I'm glad I did. So I'll put those back in my little jar. So that's all the finished items and work in progresses. I do have a couple of acquisitions or plans that I want to knit in the future. So the first one is that I have the second skein of this, what is this color called again? The Orgin by Walcot Yarns High Desert. I'm glad I looked at that because I was going to call it Desert Flower. It's High Desert. I knit the Inclinations Shawl last year, and one of the, I actually was really lucky and I got to go to the Spin Cycle brick and mortar up in Washington, Oregon. I'm so sorry. It's up there. And I picked up 6 skeins of Spin Cycle to make the Inclination Shawl, then realized I wanted to kind of micro stripe it and Michael Sarah, I wanted to micro stripe it, and so I ended up destashing 3 of the skeins of yarn and then replacing it with like just a solid brown. And then I ended up using 2 of the skeins that I kept, and then one of the skeins I was like, I don't like this either. I want it to all kind of look the same color. So I purchased another one online, and then this is really boring of me just telling you that I have 8 extra skein of spin cycle. I'm so sorry. But this is the extras. This is Castaway, Dream State, 50 grams of worsted weight spin cycle yarn that I have. I've actually tried to sell this a couple times on Reddit, as you do, Facebook Marketplace, but no one wanted to buy it for me. So I still have it, and it actually looks great with this color. So I would really like to make something with this. I don't know if I have enough to do a DRK everyday shawl, or no, sorry, DRK everyday cowl, or Harlow hat, or I don't know. So I have 93 grams of the Walcot yarn, and there's hair everywhere always, and then 50 grams of this. So I don't know, like, it would be great to find a pattern that uses one more than the other, but you know, I don't know. So I gotta find the perfect pattern for that. Where am I gonna put that? Right here. Lastly, so I mentioned earlier about the Saxony cashmere yarn that I really like from Juniper Farms. And so I knit my mom the Nellie neck warmer last year for my favorite things knitwear. And I have a little bit extra of that. Last year I cast it on a headband with this, and I didn't have enough, so I ripped it back out. So I just have this little nugget. But I did get a gift card for Christmas from my local yarn store, and they had this yarn, and I special ordered to them a sweater's quantity, and it's an Aran weight yarn, so I'm hoping that as my first pullover sweater large garments, I mean, I've knit a couple cardigans, but I would say unsuccessfully. I gave both of them away. So I ordered a sweater's quantity of Saxony Farm in the color Chiffon. Let me double check. But there she is. Those are all my skeins. The color is Chiffon. So that's this really pretty beige with some specks, some speckies. So yeah, I want to knit the sweater number 18 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I've got a lot of My Favorite Things Knitwear going on. I guess I just really like the texture. This is a similar texture to both of these bandanas. So yeah, what else was I going to say? That's what I want to cast on. I feel like I have had the opposite of cast on energy, where I'm like, I'm afraid to cast this thing on, but I should do it. Back to the brown nugget. I'm going to make a swatch with this, since I don't know what else to do with it, and then I don't have to. I'm pretty sure I got enough yarn. I ordered 9 skeins of 50 grams, which is less than what the pattern calls for. I think I should have gotten 10 skeins, but I'm going to crop it. So I should be fine, because I only need a little bit of that 10 skeins. So, but just to be safe, I'm going to swatch with this, and I don't know what else to do with this. I don't know. So, I think that's it. That's all I have. I did my my finished objects, my work in progress, and my, I guess, accusations? No. My upcoming projects, maybe, is what I want to call that section. So, anyways, did I introduce myself? I did. I said I was Natalie. I guess that, so I've only made one other video. This is my second video. And I can't remember if I talked about my like knitting story, but I was going to kind of share like a quick little intro to me and my knitting. So I'm 34 years old. I learned to knit in my early 20s. My great grandmother from Peru taught me how to knit. I'm Peruvian, spoiler alert. She didn't speak English though, so she taught me how to knit in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish, but I learned how to knit in Spanish. And she was a self-drafter. So everything she knit, she self-drafted. And this is so that's how I learned how to knit. So that's 10 years ago. We didn't gauge, we just knit things. We saw things, we were like, we can knit that, and we would knit them. And I mean, there's a lot of the ill-fitting clothing in the family from that time of our lives. And I don't even think she ever blocked anything. I'm actually really curious. I live on a really busy street, and I film these. I've only filmed two, but I'm trying to film them in the middle of the day where the traffic won't be so bad. But so rude. So yeah, so we self-drafted, and we didn't block, we didn't gauge. I'm curious to block some of those items and see if they would fit better. Most of them are my mom's items because it was my great grandma, so she knit a lot for her. So I think about 7 or 8 years ago, a couple years into knitting, I was like, oh, I want to knit from a pattern. So I learned how to knit from a pattern. I went to my local yarn store. They're really helpful there. They taught me how to knit from a pattern, and I started knitting from a pattern. And I didn't knit as often. I knit maybe 2 projects a year. I was a very strict monogamous knitter. And then I want to say 2 years ago, 1 year ago, I got into knitting YouTube. I discovered knitting YouTube. And I feel like that is like the turning point for me, where it opened my eyes to, wait a minute, I can knit more than one project at a time. Wait a minute, I can knit things for myself. Like, what? I was a monogamous knitter, and I was a gift knitter. And then also I just felt like I just learned so much from YouTube. So I feel like I am a better knitter because of YouTube. Like, I learned about gauge, about yarn weights, and things that I think I would have learned eventually through trial and error. But so yeah, that's my knitting story. And last year was my year of like, oh, I'm gonna knit all the time. I'm gonna always be knitting. And not always, like I always have a project, which I haven't done in the past. And so I use those techniques of always having multiple projects, always having different types of projects that are easy to travel with. And that has really increased my knitting productivity. I don't know what to call it. My knitting mojo. I don't like that as much. Lost my train of thought. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that knitting YouTube has done so much for me, and I love consuming people's videos. So part of me wanted to be part of that world. Honestly, I'm making these videos because I don't have one single friend who knits, and this is such a big part of my life and a big part of my happiness that I would love to meet people who, love the same things I do. And in the same season of life would be nice too, like not that there's anything wrong with being friends with the grannies at the yarn store, but just like it's weird to see someone in their 30s knitting to the general population. So it'd be cool to know other people my age who knit, who feel the same weirdness of being a 30-year-old knitter. So that's why I'm here. I don't have any like big goals with this YouTube. I'm not trying to have like become a niche knitting celebrity or like any monetary gains that I'm trying to do. I just want to be part of the community and hopefully make some friends and be able to go to a fiber festival and not be such a wallflower, because I'm pretty shy. And yeah, I'm hoping this helps. It's not, maybe. I have a lot of fears, and this was one of them. And it wasn't that bad though. The first one wasn't that bad. So if you're one of the people who watch those and you're watching this one, thank you. Thank you for coming back to the YouTube channel that is Knitcheek. That's me. I'm the cheek. I'm going to stop talking. So bye everyone. Thank you.